I had to promise her two things. I had to promise her that I was going to go back to school and finish, and I had to, if my Aunt Mert needed me, that I would be there for her. And those were the promises I made to my mom on her deathbed. And of course, I had to keep it.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Sweet Mother Podcast, a podcast that exists to tell the stories of powerful women as told by the daughters they left behind. I'm your host, Sohkor Solanke, and in this episode, we'll honor the life of Ruby Mae Brooks, a Creole woman born in Louisiana in 1928. She married Anthony Matthews, and together they had 6 children. My guest today is the youngest of her 6 children. She joins us to honor the life, legacy, and rich Creole heritage of the mother she lost when she was just 20 years old, and to explain how her mother's deathbed plea motivated her to advance from high school dropout to full-time college graduate with degrees from Xavier University, University of Maryland, Coppin State University, and University of Tampa. She's also a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority. Please welcome Mrs. Regina Matthews. Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I have a very special guest with me today. Her name is Mrs. Regina Matthews. Would you like to introduce yourself to our audience, please? Tell them a little bit about yourself, who you are, your family, where you live, what you do for a living, etc.
Hi, I'm Regina Louise Matthews, and I'm a nurse practitioner here in Tampa Bay. What I do for a living, I work in the pediatric office. I have a 30-plus year nursing career. I've been a nurse practitioner since 99, family practice certified. 4 adult children and 10 grandchildren.
Wow, I didn't realize it was 10.
Yeah, it's 10.
I'm counting.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And, not to forget, 1 great-grandchild.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Sade's child.
A boy, right?
A boy, yeah.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Yes. So what else about would you like to know?
Where do you live? Did you tell us?
I live here in Riverview, Florida.
And where are you from originally?
Yeah, I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, from the 7th ward of New Orleans. Well, actually, that's where I guess I was raised from the time I was 9. But originally, I guess I'd say I'm from Uptown New Orleans. That's where we reigned from at first. And my family, my parents are from Terrebonne Parish in Louisiana, which is about 50 miles outside of New Orleans and along the bayous and Homer, Louisiana. That's where my mother's parents are from and my father's parents are from. My mother moved to New Orleans, I think, when she was about 4. And the whole family moved to New Orleans. My grandparents moved in Uptown.
So I realized that I've actually known you for over 20 years, and I know a lot about you and about your family. When I was preparing for this interview, one thing I realized is that I actually don't know much about your mother, except that she's from New Orleans or from Louisiana, and that I know she passed away young. She was in her 40s. But you said that she moved to New Orleans when she was little and she's 4. Tell us a little bit about your mother's background. Like, when was she born? Where was she born?
Okay.
Parents?
Mom was born in 1928. Her father was a Baptist preacher, and his father was a Baptist preacher. And their last name was Brooks. My grandma, we call her Mamu, and grandpa we call Papa, Grandpa. That's because our family has the French background, Creole, Louisiana Creole, and my papa, my grandpa was a Baptist preacher, as I said, and he had a church in the lower 9th ward of New Orleans, and he's ordained many Baptist preachers.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I lived with them for the most part. I'm the youngest of 6. My mother had 4 girls and 2 boys, and I was the youngest. My father was a longshoreman, what they call. He worked on the river unloading, I guess, the ships, and that was considered a very good job during that time. I think even this time but it also came with a lot of habits. Longshoremen had habits of women and
drinking.
He wasn't so much of a drinker, but womanizing. He was very handy. He made a good check, and the women wouldn't leave him alone, and he didn't resist. So it interfered with our family life a lot.
Yeah. Were they married?
My mom and dad?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And they had 6 children.
6 children.
So your father was a longshoreman. Did your mother work or was she home with the kids?
No, my mom finished high school at John McDonald 35, which was a very good school. You had to have high academic average to attend. And she went on to, during those days, most of women went to secretary school, and she went to Straight Business College, which was a business college there, and she graduated from Straight Business College. But she never really worked in business, but she was an avid reader. There was nothing you could ask or say. She was like a walking encyclopedia. She could hold a conversation and so full of knowledge about every single thing. Oh, I wish I could have her brain. And but she did work. She taught a while.
Oh, okay.
She taught school a while, and she also sold Avon. That's what I remember most of.
She was a hustler then.
Oh yeah. And we didn't have a car. My dad had a car, but by this time he wasn't living with us because of his behaviors.
Yeah.
And she was known as the Avon lady with the 6 kids and a dog.
What kind of dog was it?
Lady was so smart. Lady was part Greyhound and part German Shepherd.
Yeah.
She was a big dog, very intelligent. So all of us would carry one bag when she goes for the deliveries of her Avon.
Oh, you would go with her?
Oh yeah, all 6 of us. And the dog. And so everybody had a bag.
Yeah.
So
I guess nobody was going to mess with her then, right?
Yeah, and Lady was a very good judge of character. Yeah. We would know if somebody wasn't really upright because Lady would give us the sign.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she was beautiful.
So you said you were the youngest of 6.
Yes.
And she named you Regina, which means queen.
Yes, Regina Louise, and queen means royal.
Royal, yeah. Why did she give you such a powerful name?
Well, she said that I looked like a queen.
Oh.
I was, and I came home, I was born 2 days before Christmas, and I came home on Christmas Day. My second sister, she hated it. That Daddy had let them down. He did not go and get their presents and do all of the things. And so Mom tried to make them feel better by saying, but you have a brand new real live baby. Oh boy. And my second sister said, I hated you ever since.
Was that Aunt Pat?
No, that's Marie. She's my sister who died maybe 20 years ago.
Oh.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting. As soon as you said your mom was an avid reader, the first thing I thought about was your sister who's a teacher.
Yes.
And then you said your mom actually taught school for a while.
Yes.
So basically that sister took off after your mother.
Yes, she did. As far as Pat, she was the queen of the honor ball in school, and so many accolades for science and math. And that's what she turned out to be. Yeah. Science and math teacher, and what do you call this, technology?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's where she got it from. I never knew that.
Yes.
I never knew she was a teacher. It's interesting that never came up in our conversation since I'm a teacher too.
Yes. She didn't teach very long because she had a lot of help.
Yeah.
Yes. From the stress of raising these kids almost alone.
Yeah. It
was very stressful.
How did she manage? Did she have help to raise you guys when your dad left?
I stayed with my grandma and grandpa. My mama. So we call her Mamu. And so it was until I was 9, I think I wanted to go back home to stay with my sister Pat. And but I would go home on the weekend.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about this question. So I am a Black woman in the South, raising kids in what I would call the Trayvon Martin, George Floyd era, and it's pretty scary. But your mom was born in the 1920s, so she grew up in the Deep South, and she raised kids in the Deep South. It doesn't get much deeper than Texas, Louisiana, maybe Florida, during the Jim Crow era. So if we think it's scary now, I can't even imagine what it was like, some of the things that we've learned through history that were happening. Did she ever tell you about some of the experiences she went through, or did you even see any of those experiences of her navigating life as a Black woman and raising kids in the Deep South during Jim Crow?
Well, during the time I grew up, we lived on Gravier Street, and it's what they call the Third Ward at that time. And actually, the street and we lived on, a lot of our neighbors were Italian.
Oh, wow.
It was a black Italian area.
Oh.
The neighbors on both sides were Miss Trim and Mr. Bob. I think he was just a white person. I'm not sure of his nationality background, but most of them were, and the black people and Italian people lived together.
Yeah.
We owned our own home, our own property, and everybody was respectful to everybody. But they were strict about us going into anybody's house, and I was a very curious and friendly little girl. And I remember there was this lady, Miss Kate. She loved me. She adored me. She thought I was such a cute little girl. She happened to be a white lady. And my grandmother would say, "You don't go in Miss Katie's house. I don't want you to go in Miss Katie's house." Miss Katie was also a drunk. But I, as a 3 or 4 year old, you didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just know she talked loud and she always was drinking something, and I didn't know what it was because I came from a family of people who didn't drink. Our white neighbors and our black neighbors, we all got along very well. Mm-hmm. Very well. It was just some people around the corner from us, some twins about my age, and they had a big sister called Baby Doll who was about the age of my older sister, and they were friends with my Italian neighbor Susan, and they would go to Susan's house to play, but they would never come to our house to play. I had to speak to them through the fence, and I couldn't understand that. And I said, "Well, why would you go right next door to Susan's and won't come right here to my house?" I couldn't understand it, and no one ever explained it to me that the reason they don't come to your house and in your house is because you're black.
Yeah.
You're Creole or black, but we're black people or Creole people. I mean, Creole people are black people.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's another thing I didn't understand until I grew up. There were some things maybe by the time, because all of this was before desegregation. And I remember when people just did what was expected. There was a lady, a black lady named Miss McDonald. She had a boarding house. And this very old man who had gotten too old to cook his food, he would want a stuffed crab every day. And it was in a crab shell. It was the shell of the crab, and it was stuffed. It was really good. And there was a place around the corner who sold the stuffed crabs. And I had to go to the window and knock, and I'd give him the note for what he wanted, and I give him the money and the stuffed crab. I was probably 7. I didn't have to cross any streets or anything. It's just right around the corner, on the corner of White and Dupree. And I would go to that window. But I always thought I went to that window because I was a child. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that I went to that window because I was a black child.
Oh, okay.
The white people would go through the front door, but it was a back
entrance.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so a lot of those, no one ever explained it. It was children know what they need to know only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And I remember during the time when black people were registering to vote, I was a little bit old enough to realize that things were different at that time. And my mother was very upset because you had to take a test. Now, she was a very knowledgeable woman, very educated. And she was very upset because they told her that she failed the test. My mom said, "There is no way I failed that test." She said, "I know I answered everything correctly."
Yeah.
It was almost like a citizenship test or something, And she asked them what question. She insisted on them telling her, what did she fail? Say, "Oh, you failed the first thing because we asked for your name and you gave your title. You said Mrs." Mm. And she said, "So because I addressed myself as Mrs., you saying that I failed the test?" Yeah. So they did all kinds of crazy things. And I think that was probably the first taste of that that I experienced. And then after that, as I got older, I experienced a lot. Yeah, I remember by this time we had moved to the 7th Ward, and there was a playground that I loved to go to swim called Stallings Playground. And so when they desegregated the pools, the whole neighborhood came to the pool. And the white people didn't want us there. So they broke the diving board and threw it in the pool and filled the pool up with bottle so that no one could swim in it. And the city didn't have the funds at that time.
Glass?
Bottle glass. They just all got all kind of bottles and broke it into the pool. So the pool had to close. The New Orleans Recreation Department didn't have in their budget to clean the pool like that, to repair it.
You know, one time you told me a story about this era in your childhood, and I'd love for you to tell us the story again. You were telling me about the time that you realized that the girl down the street, Ruby, was the same girl in the news, Ruby.
Oh, yes. You're talking about
desegregation, Ruby Bridges, right?
Ruby Bridges. Yes. Her brother and I worked at Popeye's Fried Chicken, the very first Popeye's Fried Chicken. Her parents, they lived in the, I think it was the Fisher or the Desire Project. I can't remember which one because they're very close. And the Bridges family, their brother Carl, I used to call him Sweet Pea because he looked like Sweet Pea on Popeye.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that was their family. I remember I was there looking at TV and the mom was so excited because they were coming to interview them or something like that. And I said, I had no idea.
That was Ruby Bridges.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't know anything about Ruby Bridges at that time. It was just afterwards. I grew up, I realized Carl Bridges' sister. That's Miss Bridges' daughter.
That's such a cool story.
Yeah.
You mentioned that your mom and dad were homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
How common was that back then for Black families?
My parents were homeowners too. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it was that common. I don't know. Yeah. But I know on our block on Gravia Street, 2800 block of Gravia, there were many Black homeowners there. We had Miss McDonald, who had this huge house, who she rented out as a boarding house. The next to her house was Miss Williams, and next to the Williams, there was Uncle Pete Williams, who was the other Williams' brother. And then there was this other lady, Miss Sarah. She died, and she was really weird, but she owned her own home too. And then we had the Italians, Miss Trim and Miss Vi, and across the street there was the Pages. Let me see, 1, 2, and the Bells. So we in our block in that neighborhood there were a lot of Black homeowners.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I feel like that's not really advertised, that history.
Yeah,
you know,
they were. I think almost all of the Black people who lived there were homeowners. Not many renters.
Yeah.
Except in the next block, they may have had some. But even though Black people owned those properties, and I don't know how that came to be, that they rented out to other people. Yeah, Mr. Prosper was a man named Mr. Prosper. He owned a lot of property back then.
What's his name?
Prosper.
It's funny.
Yeah. Right. He was prosperous. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a question about your faith. So I've known you for over 20 years, and I know you to be somebody who's always involved in church, somebody who has a heart for worship. You're always serving on worship teams. You love to sing for the Lord. You're someone who's a very generous giver, not just in church, but outside of church too. You have a big heart. How much of this faith that you have and this love for God, how much of this is coming from what your mother has imparted into you from a child?
Well, as I said, my grandfather was a Baptist preacher. And I grew up listening to him prepare sermons, quoting scriptures all day. And I'll never, you mentioned my mom. We had this plaque in the house, and it said, do nothing that you wouldn't want to be caught doing when Jesus comes. Mm-hmm. Say nothing that you wouldn't want to be caught saying when Jesus comes. And I said, well, why is that so important? Mom, why is that so important? She said, because Jesus sees everything and hears everything. And everything you say, he knows. So you don't want to be caught saying that. Yeah. Jesus is always here. And that's something that stayed with me.
Yeah.
And my mother always encouraged us. In fact, we would pray every morning, every night before, up to the time that she died. Every day I spoke with my mom. I see people go for months and years without talking to their mom. And it was very crazy for me to even understand that. Yeah. But she would say good night, and we would pray every night before we went to bed.
So when I think about you in church, one thing that has always struck me is just the way you carry yourself in church, the suits, like the pastor's wife, first lady kind of suits, the hats, the pearls. Like, was this your mom too? Did she dress like that?
No, she didn't.
Really?
No, she didn't. My mom was Auntie Mert did.
Oh, okay.
My mom was very simple.
Okay.
And of course, she couldn't even afford that. She barely had a lot of dresses.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my Aunt Mert was blessed enough to have a husband who was very, well off. Mm-hmm. Yes, and so I sort of gotten that style from her. Mm-hmm. She was an Eastern Star, and she was the secretary of the church, and she had no children. So my mom always told her that her children were her children. And she always wanted to be the in vogue person, And she was so talented. Yeah. She could look at anything in the Spiegel magazine or the Vogue magazine and then recreate it.
Like sew it?
Sew it.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And my uncle Louis belonged to this, there are a lot of social and pleasure clubs in New Orleans, and he belonged to this club called Just Us Men. And they would have Mardi Gras balls every year. And so he would give my aunt $1,000 to buy a dress to wear for the ball because he wanted his wife to look the best.
Wow.
He said, "Here, take this $1,000, Myrtle, and make yourself look like $1 million." And she would show him the gown that she wanted to wear in the catalog, but she would make it. And then she'd pocket the money and put it in the bank.
Oh, so she was a smart woman.
Oh, she was a businesswoman. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she would take the $1,000, probably use $300 to recreate the thing, and that's Then she'd say, "Well, I need shoes and I need this."
Yeah, I feel like that's a lost art, sewing clothes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was beautiful.
Yeah. So recently I saw a quote that said, behind every woman is another strong woman. So I'm thinking about you and the fact that you have, I think I'm doing something with my 2 degrees, but you took my 2 degrees and you're like, I'll take that and I'll double it. So you have 4 degrees, you own property, you're a business owner, successful career in nursing, raised 4 children, you have 10 grandchildren or great-grandchildren. How much of this would you attribute to what your mom poured into you?
My mother. Okay. I'm going to share something with you. I was a person who had trouble with school. Mm-hmm. I was a person that every year, not every year, but towards the end of middle school, that was during the time my parents divorced. Yeah. My mother was sickly. She wasn't working. We were dirt poor. And the clothes, by the time the end of the school year, whatever few little outfits you had, but towards the end of the school year, they had all played out, worn out, and you just didn't want to go. So I didn't want to go to school because I was tired of being teased that I'm wearing the same old clothes. Every time I see you, you look like yesterday. Isn't that mean? Wow. Children can be so mean. So I would hide under the bed because I didn't want to go. And I was good at school when I applied myself. And I always wanted to go to college. I didn't know how I was going to get there. And my mother would always say, "Gina, you're my smartest child. Go to school. You think Pat's the smartest. You're the smartest. You're the smartest. Please, I want you to finish. I want you to finish school. I want you to go to college. You can do it. You can do it." She always talked, but I never thought I could do it. Yeah. I just couldn't. I always wanted to, but I didn't think I could. So by the time I was in 9th grade, I quit school. I did. Yeah, I was a high school dropout. And I didn't go to high. I never made it to high school. And I got a job, worked different places like that, and decided. And my mom would say, "Gina, you have to go back to school. You have to go back to school." By this time, my mom died. And she told me on her deathbed, Gina, please promise me that you'll finish. Promise me that you'll go back. And I promised. She promised. I had to promise her two things. I had to promise her that I was going to go back to school and finish. And I had to, if my Aunt Mert needed me, that I would be there for her. And those were the promises I made to my mom on her deathbed. And of course, I had to keep them. So after my mom died, I enrolled in the school called Urban League Street Academy. And I just blossomed. Oh, they loved me. I was writing poetry. I was, I wrote poetry. I went through the math teacher, loved me, Dr. Conyers. He was from Cuba. And he just thought I was the most brilliant person in the world. Because he said, to the board, to the board, to the board. You go to the board and do this. So I would get there and do all the problems on the board. And they just thought I had never been encouraged like that. Nobody ever told me I was smart in math. In fact, let me tell you another secret. When I was in 7th grade, I had this teacher called Mr. Thornton, math teacher. Mr. Thornton would give us a whole half a board of math problems, pages to do for homework. And I said, at this time, it was when I was having problems with my parents getting a divorce and angry. So I said, I'm not doing that. That's too much homework. I just refused to do it because it would take you half the period even just to copy down. We didn't have computers. You had to handwrite. He had a whole side of the board with pages. And he was such a weird teacher. He was very good. So, but Mr. Thornton would come. He had a day for everything. He wore 3 suits his whole career. He had he had a day that he would do things like on joke. He had a day that he would tell a joke. You want me to share one of the jokes?
You still remember?
Oh, of course. he had this one joke. It was about a long division. And he would always, for some reason, antagonize me and put me in his jokes. and he had a dunce rope, and I was in it. 3 of us was in it. This girl named Cheryl Gus, who denies it now. I saw her at a reunion. I said, remember, we were in the dunce rope. Not me. I never was in the... You were in the dunce rope. You were the first one in the dunce rope. And this other girl, Cheryl Hawkins, and I think she grew up to be an author.
Oh, wow.
And me. We were the 3 in the dunce rope. And so, well, anyway, he would always put me in his joke. So he said, that was this little girl, and she was very stupid. Something like old Matthews over there. And so, he said, and this boy came, and he was very brilliant. And he would call the name of one of the brilliant boys. I don't remember. I think Charles Desmond or something. And so he said, I'm going to teach you to add. So he kissed her on the cheek.
What?
Yeah. A crazy joke, right? And she kissed him back. And the little boy said, that's addition. And then he kissed her on her other cheek and put his hand on her thigh.
What?
And she slapped his face. I think that's kind of perverted.
Yes.
Yeah, but he couldn't get away with that now.
No.
Yeah, and she slapped his face. He told her, okay, that's subtraction. And then he kissed her 2 times. She kissed him 2 times. He kissed her 2 times. She kissed her 2 times. He said, that's multiplication. He said, and then the little girl's dad heard all of that going on. And he came in and kicked the lad 4 blocks and said, that's long division.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he had so many crazy jokes. Well, anyway, Mr. Thornton gave me a half a 0 on my report card.
I don't understand how that works.
Yeah, a half. And so that was this little half a moon shaped thing on my report card. I said, Mr. Thornton, you forgot to give me my grade. He said, oh, no, Matthews, that's your grade. I said, Mr. Thornton, you didn't put it. What is that? What is that? You know. So he said, it's a half a 0 what you earned. I said, oh, Mr. Thornton, if I can't go home with this, I won't get any Easter clothes. All I cared about was clothes. You know. So I said, I won't get any Easter clothes. He said, Matthews, that's your grade. That's what you got. That's what you get. And I said, well, let me clean your room, clean your boards, clap your erasers. Give me a chance. Give me some makeup work. Give me some makeup work, Mr. Thornton. And I begged and begged for makeup work. He didn't lift his eyebrow. He just kept doing because during those days, he would correct all of his papers before he leave work. So when he went home, because I think he was also a preacher. And so Mr. Thornton picked up his briefcase, turned around and looked at me and said, Matthews, you can't do keep up. How you going to do makeup?
Oh.
So it gave me a mental block, getting that half zero on my paper.
Yeah.
So when I got to Street Academy, by this time I was probably 18 or 19. I was so excited that they thought I was so brilliant. And I guess my intelligence started showing, and they just marveled me. And Gail Glapion was the director of that program, and she really helped me a lot. I love her and her husband. Her husband, John Glapion, was one of our high school teachers. He was the football coach, and they loved our family. My oldest brother was a track star, one of his track stars, and he loved my brother so much. And
so your mom's deathbed, I guess, plea to you was what started the journey of education. Yes, that led to 4 degrees. It did.
And so Gail Glapion, who was the director of Street Academy, people usually go there for a couple of years. I finished, I think I got the GED like in 6 months. I could have gotten it before that, but that's just how the intervals when they would allow you to test, and you had to score a certain amount to sit for the test. So I did. I sat for the GED. I passed it. She said, oh, you have to go to college. She was a Xavier graduate. Her husband was a Xavier graduate. And they said, you are a Xavier material. You should go to Xavier. So she wrote a letter of recommendation for me, asked them to waive the entrance fee and all of that, showed me how to fill out the grants then. And I mean, not for her, it wouldn't have happened. She was just so wonderful to me. Gail Glapion.
That was where you got your first degree, Xavier?
Xavier University, yeah. And so, and they all said, oh, you're so pretty. You are TV. You should be on television. So I studied. I always wanted to be a nurse.
Yeah.
When back to my grandfather, we used to go on a mission to see the old people when they were sick, and I would rub their legs and everything and sing with my grandmother to them when we go around to see the sick and shut in. And they would always say, oh, you've got to be a nurse. You've got a healing touch. You got a healing touch. But I didn't try nursing because I was still a bit afraid of the science and the math. I didn't think I could do it. Yeah. And so I studied mass communications, and I did very well, and business administration. Yeah. That's what I studied my first degree with. And later I said, I really wanted to be a nurse. And so I said, I'll take one class in the sciences. If I pass it, I'll go for it. So I took chemistry, of all things. And I had a foreign teacher named Dr. Wu. This was at Coppin. By this time, I had moved to Baltimore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had moved to Baltimore. And Dr. Wu was the chemistry teacher. And he taught the same way Dr. Kanyas send you to the board, and you had to explain the problem and the formulas. And boy, he would sit back there and he would just marvel at how I could do it. And all of my classmates, they all would come to me to show them how to do it. I said, what, me? And I made an A in chemistry. Amazing. Then I took the other class and I said, okay, let's do it. And that's how I became a nurse. I went to University of Maryland in Baltimore and got a BS in nursing.
So what level of education did your mom have?
She had I guess that was an associate degree.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, sorry.
And during that time, high school went to 11th grade, not 12. And then she went on 2 years for the business, straight business.
Because you said back then women were pushed into
secretarial or something like that. Yeah.
How old were you when she passed?
I was 20.
You were young?
Yeah.
What happened to her?
Well, she had cancer. She died of lung cancer. She never was a smoker, but my dad was.
So, was she ill for a long time?
Well, all throughout. Also, I think part of it was during the time when she was a child, there was a tuberculosis epidemic in the going on, and her older sister died from TB. And during those days, they didn't, they had her isolated, like in the bottom, in the different part of the house, the aunt. And my mom wasn't supposed to go down there.
Mm-hmm.
But she never caught TB, but I think she got something that weakened her lungs.
Yeah.
And, and so it kind of made her sickly. And plus having 6 children, one after another, and then all of the stress of trying to raise them and provide and, all of that didn't help. So she died at 48. Yeah. She turned 47 in June and died in August.
When she was sick, did you get to nurse her and be with her?
Yeah, but I wasn't a nurse then.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I wasn't anything then.
Yeah. But I mean, did you take care of her?
Yes, we all took turns sitting with her and taking care of her. Mm-hmm. And I was there with her when she died. As a matter of fact, I thought she was better. She was that, the day before she died, she was sitting up, talking, and she sort of like got better to die.
That sounds so familiar. That sounds like what happened with my mother.
Yeah, she was just so happy, and we were just so happy. I said, Mama's going to be there. She's going to be okay. Yeah. Mama's going to be okay. And I was so excited.
Yeah.
And I called all of my siblings. I said, she's doing so much better, And I went home so happy. Mm-hmm. And the next day when I came, she was having what they call Kussmaul respiration. And they weren't supposed to take her to the x-ray. Mm-hmm. They had been having the x-ray machine come to her bed.
Oh, she was in the hospital?
Yeah. Okay. And this intern or student or something wanted to see what condition her lungs were in that and did an unnecessary. He didn't know anything about her. And she hadn't been able to lie down because her lungs would fill up with water. Mm-hmm. And so they were forcing her to lie down. I said, leave her alone, leave her alone, leave her alone. They brought her to the x-ray and I said, leave her. I was pregnant with Kojo at the time. And I was praying so hard, and it felt like my prayer wasn't reaching God. Mm-hmm. I could feel it. I was praying. I was pressing into my hand. Mm-hmm. All of this was bruised from me I kept trying to pray harder and harder and harder and harder. But I could feel like it wasn't reaching God. And then I kept praying, and then, all of the alarms went off and everything. And I was alone there with her. And it was, I'll never forget it. Yeah.
What was that season like with you being pregnant, having to say goodbye to your mom?
Oh, I thought I was going to die when I delivered the baby. I was all prepared to die because I said, Mama's gone and I'm going to go with her.
Yeah.
In fact, I thought I was going to die. Mm-hmm. In fact, I almost did afterwards. Yeah. I had like a relapse and I was bleeding and hemorrhaging afterwards. Mm-hmm. And I felt my body. I felt my soul come out of my body and I was looking at it. Mm-hmm. I was looking at everybody in the room.
How much longer after she passed did you have the baby?
A month.
A month. Oh wow! So soon after.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. She died in August and Kojo was born in September. And I just knew I was going to die, and I was all right with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that feeling. Yeah. I know you said that people said to you from the time you were young that they saw that you would be a nurse, but did your mom being sick and you feeling helpless, did that at all influence your decision to go into nursing?
It did, because I wanted to help people. I wanted to heal people. And it did. It really did. And I always said I wish the stuff I know now, if I knew then, maybe Mama wouldn't have died.
Yeah.
They did a lot of things wrong.
Yeah.
They used her as a guinea pig. Oh.
So I had a question, but I know the answer to it now. From what you said, I know that Kojo is your second child, which means that I don't know the age gap between your first child, Gregory and
Kojo, are 3 years apart.
So that means that your mom got to see Gregory.
Yes, she did.
Tell me about that and what that means to you.
They were inseparable.
Oh, wow.
They were inseparable. Yeah, and during that time, I worked a lot. I had 3 jobs. Mm-hmm. So
you were a hustler too, like your mom?
Yeah, I had 3 jobs. And so it was hard for me. So Mom said, just leave him here with me. Don't go all around getting people. So he basically stayed with her.
Yeah.
And one time, I remember one time I was quarreling with Mom. not really quarreling, but showing displeasure.
Yeah.
Because she had given him a bottle. And I didn't want him sucking the bottle. My niece sucked the bottle till she was in second grade.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going to let him do that. And so I came there, and Gregory, he was probably 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sucking the bottle. And I said, Mom, I told you I don't want him sucking the bottle. He's too old for a bottle. And I looked down at this cute little boy, and he had the worst frown on his face that it scared me. He was, don't shut my maid. I said, oh my goodness. It made me tremble. He was so upset that I had raised my voice at my mom. Yeah, it wasn't really a quarrel. It's just that I said, Mom, I told you I don't want him sucking a bottle, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my, I'll never forget that.
Do you have any pictures of the two of them together?
Unfortunately, all of those kind of pictures got destroyed in Katrina.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot of those pictures from back then, were destroyed by Katrina. Yeah.
So I know you said that there was a picture in your house that had a motto about, like, be careful what you say and what you do, because Jesus is coming back all season.
Right, never say anything wrong.
And you said you always remember that. Is there anything else that your mom taught you that you've never forgotten?
Oh, so many things.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, you mean as it relates to...
Just things that have been like a mantra in life for you, something that you've used to guide your life, that your mom always instilled in you.
Well, she always wanted me. She had a boyfriend named Buster who died before she felt that he was the person she was supposed to marry. And she always said, if you love somebody, always let them know. Mm-hmm. That was one of the things she said.
Well, you definitely do that with the people in your life. Mm-hmm. Not even I'm not talking about a romantic relationship. I mean just like friends and family.
Mm-hmm. And she said, always be willing to help people and never judge people by what they don't have or what they do have. And I think those are the things that sort of stuck with me a lot.
I want to switch to talking about the lady that I know you're taking care of is Aunt Mert, and you did explain. I never knew this. You just explained to me that your mom asked you on her deathbed to take care of her, because the whole time I've known you, you were always going to New Orleans to take care of Aunt Mert and worried about Aunt Mert. So she was like a second mom to you?
Not really.
What was the relationship between the two of you?
Okay, she was my Aunt Mert, and I was always around her because she lived down the street from my grandma. Mm-hmm. She was selling Avon before. She had a car though. Yeah. So when I was a little girl, she would put me in the car with her when she went to deliver her Avon, so that no one would steal it. Yeah. So
it's funny because I used to sell Avon to you in the early 2000s.
Yeah. And but Aunt Mert, this is her quote. She said, when your mom died, she said, I don't have anything to give you, sister. So I'm going to leave you my 6 beautiful children. And she said, I said, shh. What the heck I want with your 6 children? And she said, I said that because I never thought I would need you all. I always thought you guys would need me. Mm-hmm. And that she would say that every day while I was taking care of her. Yeah. And she regretted saying that. Yeah. And she's saying she was, she never knew the prize that her sister was giving her, the blessing, because she wouldn't have had anybody to take care of her.
Yeah, because she has no kids of her own.
No kids. Yeah. Yeah. But she said, well, I guess if I would have had kids, I wouldn't have had all this money.
All right. So tell me about Aunt Mert and how she because she went through Hurricane Katrina.
Yes.
But she was elderly at that time. Yes. So what was that like for her?
Oh, it was like something she never thought she would experience. And her leg she had fallen and fractured her leg before that. And then with Katrina came when they were trying to evacuate, she fell down the stairs and fractured it even more. So and so they put her in a plane, and I told them to bring her to me. And so they did. They evacuated her and my Uncle Sterling. They evacuated, and his wife and some other relatives evacuated to me here in Florida. And we had her. Oh, yeah, I think it was her hip and her leg, and had it repaired here. Yeah, so she was recuperating from that.
Mm-hmm. But eventually she did go back home, didn't she?
Yes,
Yeah.
she did after probably almost a year. She stayed with here for almost a year.
So I know. So your mom passed when she was in her late 40s. Aunt Mert passed I think it was 2 years ago, 1 year ago.
Yeah, she was 100 years old when she passed.
It's incredible. Now that lady is strong. She's
she was 100 years old.
Yeah,
and everything was fine.
Yeah,
she just old age and
time
ago.
And then recently, your uncle passed. Yeah, and I remember you making a comment about the end of that generation. So,
yes.
Yeah. So, what does the end of that generation mean? What are we losing?
Oh, so much history, so many things that we just took for granted. Especially Uncle Sterling's death. I don't think I'm over that yet. I still say I cannot believe Uncle Sterling is gone. And even in the country, in Homer, my aunts and uncles there, it's just not the same when you go there. Before, when you go to the country, when you go there.
In Louisiana, in
Homer. Yeah, the hometown. You have to go to each aunt and they would shower you with gifts, shower you with food. Oh, so much food. And we loved it. And things are not the same. Now I go see my cousins, they don't even offer you water. It's just not the same. Most of them don't cook. I think I'm the last person who really cooks.
Yeah, and you do throw down in the kitchen.
That's my passion. I love cooking, and I love cooking New Orleans food.
Your beignets are very good.
I still cook it the way my grandma and my mom taught me.
Yeah,
with the real Creole recipes. Amazing. And not all of the shortcuts that they have now. That's one of the things I'm really passionate about, and I try to teach my children who will learn some of the recipes. But I'm
glad you're passing them. Yeah, this has been really. I've just loved hearing all these stories about your mom and her generation and you as a kid. I just want to end by asking you one question. Your mom only lived to see one of your children, but you have 4 children and 10 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. Yeah. Do you see her in any of them? Not only just physically, but behaviors too?
Certain a little bit of her in a lot of the kids. My boys, to be men, are very passionate and loving, and won't mind showing they love you. And I think that came from her. The soft part of it. Wanting to show, how men will have the hard exterior, not wanting to show
the toughness.
They don't mind expressing affection. They don't mind it. They like it. And that's how she was very, and my grandkids too. And I guess because, I was 13 and I used to still sit on my mom's lap. Oh.
You were also the baby, right?
Yeah. So I can remember being 13 and my siblings coming there, get off of mom, you're 13 years old, get off her lap.
That's amazing.
And she would say, leave her alone. She's my baby. She'll always be my baby.
Like a Mariah Carey song.
Yeah. She said, she's my baby. She'll always be my baby.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing this history with us. And I've just loved spending this time and just getting to know more about your mom.
Oh, you're welcome. Ruby Mae Brooks, I think, would have been proud and happy that she's featured in the podcast.
Well, there you have it, listeners. Ruby Mae Brooks, as told by her daughter, Mrs. Regina Matthews. Join us in our next episode, where we'll showcase the life of another powerful woman. My name is Sohkor Solanke. If you'd like to hear more from me, or if you'd like to send me a message about the show, check out the show notes for a link to my blog, as well as my email address and Instagram handle. Thanks for listening.